welcome to Season 2 of Time Travel Misadventures. Where'd You Get That Amulet? By Thalassa Matthews. The sun's rays sent golden shafts through the murky waters of the fish pond. The goldfish were long gone, eaten by hungry herons and mongoose. The rays filtered past their successors, the frogs and their tadpoles, down, until they hit something which sparkled and shone, flickering red, blue and gold. The stone was waiting. Sam woke up extra early that morning, even before Mr. Mitchell flung open the dormitory door and shouted his irritating wake-up call of, "Wakey, wakey, another day in paradise." He gave a little wriggle of joy. One more assembly to endure, then it was over. Home awaited. Home, and of course, most important of all, the stone. The magic stone that had transported him and his friends to the ancient past where they'd had incredible adventures and from which they'd brought back a real dinosaur egg. They'd hatched the egg and experienced the joys and trials of raising a baby dinosaur. Eventually, the fascinating but increasingly fierce hatchling Sunny had to be returned to her time, the Jurassic, as they realized there was no way they could keep a full-grown hunting dinosaur secret or safe on the Karoo farm where Sam and his friends, Peter and Maylie, lived. Sam's cousin, Jane, had joined in their last few adventures when she came to visit from Cape Town, and she was due to arrive at the farm that day too. She had thought of nothing but the stone and their adventures all term time and had begged her mother to go and spend all of her next school holidays at the farm. Her mother had been a bit hurt and puzzled. Usually Jane wanted to spend only a week or two of her holidays at the farm. Why did she suddenly want to go for the entire 4 weeks? But as it was a healthy, wholesome environment and kept her from too much screen time, her mother finally agreed to let her come for 3 weeks. "Your dad and I also want to spend time with you these holidays. 3 weeks is enough," her mother had said firmly. "Okay," Jane said meekly, thinking that she must be careful not to arouse her mother's suspicions. She, Sam, Peter and Maylie had sworn to keep the stone a secret. Somehow they knew that its magic was meant only for them. Well, for Sam actually. He'd been the one who found the stone and who always made the time travel wishes. They were not yet sure if it worked for anyone else. Sam's mother fetched him from school and, with perfect timing, Jane arrived an hour later, driven by her parents, who were going to spend 4 nights at the farm before going back to Cape Town. The minute Jane had helped unload the car, she and Sam, happily accompanied by his little dog Phoebe, ran across the field to the whitewashed cottage inhabited by their friends. The 3 older children were all close in age, as Sam and Peter had recently turned 11, and Jane was about to. Maylie, at 5 years, was the baby of the group. Sam and Jane were surprised to find their friends out. They were usually hanging around, eagerly awaiting their arrival. They wandered around the surrounds of their house until they heard them in the chicken coop. It transpired that Peter had made a swing for the chickens out of a stick and string, and that he and Maylie had gone to take photos as proof that the chickens loved it and took turns to use it. Their father, who always underestimated the chickens, who were charming and intelligent birds, had not believed this. "It's true," Peter said indignantly when his father scoffed at the mention of the swing-mad hens. "They absolutely love to swing." "Swing? I don't believe it. They're chickens," his father had said. "If you lend me your cell, I'll take a picture or video and prove it." Peter, who did not have his own cell phone, said eagerly. "I want several shots of different hens swinging," his father replied, "or I'll know it's a setup. You can have my phone at lunchtime." Getting the photo had proved tricky and time-consuming, as the chickens, who were allowed to roam freely in the day, had to be tricked back into their coop with food and had then proceeded to scratch and peck and ignore the swing. It was not easy, but patience won the day, and Peter was taking a picture of a 3rd swinging hen when Sam and Jane appeared. "Sam! Jane!" Maylie screeched gleefully and dashed out of the coop, scattering startled hens to hug them. As they greeted each other, foremost in all their thoughts was a stone, which they had left hidden in the fish pond at the end of the last school holidays after their final, rather terrifying adventure. "Let's go and find it. Check it's still there, safe and sound," Sam said. "Imagine if it's gone," Peter said worriedly, and they looked at each other, speechless with horror. The thought was too ghastly to contemplate. Maylie and I tried to see if we could find it once, Peter said, but it's so murky. Then Mr. September came and made a massive fuss and said we were ruining the fish pond and he was going to tell your mum. He didn't, but you know how grouchy he is. I've been having to keep telling myself it wasn't a dream, Jane said. When I'm home, it just seemed all unbelievable. Me too, Sam said. All the time I was at school, I had to keep looking at the scrapbook Peter and I made of the egg and Sunny. Remember Pompeii? Could we ever forget? Peter said happily. And, unable to wait any longer, the children broke into a trot and headed straight for the fish pond. It was a large ornamental one, but the fish Mr. Nell had optimistically put in it were long gone. A juicy, docile fish was a delicious rarity in the dry, semi-desert Karoo. A variety of ferns and flowers, painstakingly grown and watered every day by Mr. September, formed an eye-catching border for the pond. The children cast an anxious and careful glance around. Mr. September was nowhere in sight. Sam chuckled. Mr. September doesn't know it, but he's the guardian of the stone, Cerberus of the underpond. Jane and Peter laughed, but Maylie looked puzzled. Why? She asked. Cerberus is a three-headed dog which Greek mythology says guards the underworld, Peter explained patiently to his sister. Well, it's a mixed curse and a blessing because Cerberus guards, but he also bites. Jane tailed off. Look out, someone's coming round from the shed. The children scattered as fast as lightning, but to their relief it turned out not to be Mr. September, but an indifferent farm worker fetching some implement from the shed. The children reassembled, and Sam waded in until the water was lapping over the bottom of his shorts. He bent over and began to search among the rocks. I remember I hid it under the big rock. Ah, here it is. Sam dug around with increasing anxiety. I'm sure I buried it under this big sticking out bit. I can't feel it. Digging stirred up clouds of mud and algae, and it became impossible to see anything in the water. Sam began to feel around with his hands. He searched all around and under the big rock, and then extended his search. A horrible, despairing feeling was just descending on him, when suddenly his hand moved spasmodically and grasped something smooth, round, and strangely, as the depths of the pool were cool, warm. He stood up and looked at the object in his hand, then turned to face the silent, anxious onlookers, and held it high up in the air like the winner of a tournament with his cup. The stone sparkled and shone in the sunlight. Jane gave a joyful screech, Maylie jumped in squeaking joy, and Peter gave a deep, thankful breath. The suspense and fear that it had gone as mysteriously as it had appeared had been killing. They hastily straightened up a couple of squashed ferns, then headed off from the pond to the old barn, which was used for storage of straw and farm machinery, and where they would have complete privacy. It was here that they had put the dinosaur egg in the old chicken incubator and had hatched Sunny, the Sunnysaurus. At least this is what Maylie had called her, as they'd never managed to identify exactly what sort of dinosaur she was. Sam put the stone on a straw bale, and they sat regarding it in silence. This was to safeguard them from inadvertently making a wish. The late afternoon sun filtered through the open door and converged on the stone so that it looked like it was emitting light. The sweet smell of straw and the musty smell of dust mingled with the scent of magic. After a short silence, Maylie said, I want to go and see Sunny. She had been the one to find the dinosaur egg and bring it back, and had been mother to the small dinosaur. She had loved her dearly, blind to her faults and the fact that she was, to put it politely, a loose cannon, a sharp-toothed loose cannon. The boys, much as they also loved Sunny, had become increasingly nervous as she grew in size and assertiveness. They realized they had to return her to her time, the Jurassic, after she bit Phoebe, Sam's dog, even though Phoebe was her pal. They had left Sunny with her family members, and had all wondered every single day since how she was faring, or rather, had fared, all those millions of years ago in the Jurassic. All right, Sam said slowly. He was thinking of how different and frightening the Jurassic had been, but they had visited it twice and got home safely. He felt confident he could use the stone to time travel them out of trouble. We can do that. I also want to know if Sunny was okay. Maylie's face lit with a joyful smile. Fanny, Fanny, I'm going to see Fanny, she chanted, dancing around the magic stone. Can we go now? I think we should wait until tomorrow, Peter said. It's late afternoon already, and although we seem to arrive back here only a minute or two later, however much time we spend in the past, I think we should do it tomorrow. I agree, Sam said, and it'll give me a chance to stash some sausages to take to Sunny. Remember how she loved them? I know my mother bought a whole lot to make a big fry-up for breakfast tomorrow. All right, Maylie said sadly, then brightening, and I'm going to put together a present pack for her too. I'm going to get lots and lots of eggs. We love them. Peter, Peter, somebody shouted crossly from far away. Peter froze and then jumped up. Darn, that's my dad. I forgot about his cell. He's going to be mad. See you just now. And he dashed out of the shed. We'd better go too, Jane said. Our parents will be wanting to see us, or at least yours will, Sam. You've been away in boarding school. Mine probably aren't that keen. They see me every day. Yes, Sam agreed, getting up. I'm going to go and hide the stone and a shoe in my cupboard. Bye, Maylie. See you tomorrow morning. Tell Peter to meet us by the treehouse. Okay, I'm going to go and make Fanny's present now. And Maylie scampered away happily. She was going to see her dino daughter the very next day. I wonder if Sunny will remember us, Jane said as she and Sam walked towards the farmhouse. I think she would, seeing as she's the kind of dinosaur that lives in a herd, or pack, whatever you call a bunch of dinosaurs. Pack or herd animals have strong bonds. That's what keeps them together and safe. Well, she'll be very ungrateful if she doesn't remember Maylie. She doted on her, Jane said. And together the cousins made their way to the farmhouse and the mundane world of grown-ups, tea, and the inevitable and painful inquiries about school. Please remember to hit the subscribe button and join us next week for Chapter 2, A Joint to the Jurassic.